gentlemen, welcome to the Gig Member Q&A call. Today is Tuesday, April 26th. Scott Massey and James Cronk here with you today. James, great to see you. Hope all is well. It's been a little while since I've seen you face to face, but great to connect with you here. And I'm excited for today's call. I've been reading a lot lately, and I keep coming across, all the challenges in hospitality, which of course includes the golf industry when it comes to labor. And a lot of people talking about, it's not a labor problem that these employers have, but it's a culture problem. And I think that's such an interesting take. They're saying that this culture problem is what's driving the great resignation, as they call it. And, of course, we know that, you better take care of your team members if you want them to take care of your members and guests. So, it's an interesting topic. It's certainly top of mind, I think, for a lot of operators right now. And who better to chat with it than Three and Jackie Carpenter?
It's totally true, Scott. It's so awesome. We are we've been so fortunate to have so many wonderful guests on this live Q&A call. But I can tell you that Three and Jackie have been on my list since back in October, when I'm pretty sure I was the first one to buy their book, People First, and I loved it. No, in all seriousness, man, these guys have been all over the club business, the social media, the platform, People First. Our good friend Kevin McDonald was telling us about it and talking about it. Ricky Potts was talking about it. I mean, we've had a lot of our gurus that have been kind of disciples and promoters of this wonderful book, and what fantastic people. So we got to meet Three and Jackie a little while ago on a pre-call call, and we're thrilled to have them on board. And let's bring them into the Gig studio. We'll bring Three and Jackie Carpenter into the Gig studio, and there they are.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Gosh, we're sure honored to be here. Can't tell you how excited Scott, James, we are to be part of this. All the stuff you guys do is so extraordinary.
Yeah, we kind of feel like rock stars. So thank you so much for having us. We're really not that cool, but.
Well, no, so this is one of the things I'm fascinated by. I'm fascinated, I'd like to say that I'm writing a book, but I'd be lying, because I've been telling people, my family and my mother, I've been writing a book for 20 years. I'm going to write a book one day. And you guys have actually done it. And I think it's just so, first of all, the book's awesome. The book's amazing. The book has got so many wonderful nuggets in it. I've now seen webinars you guys have put on talking about it. You've been in British Columbia on Zoom presenting to golf professionals. I've seen you on conferences doing with club managers. People First relates to people in any business as well. So it's not just in the club business, but I guess, and then, I see these wonderful, adorable pictures of you guys and your family, in Easter Bunny suits the other day on some social media platform. So, I love, obviously you guys are doers and type A personalities because you get stuff done. So tell, if you don't mind, I'm just so fascinated by the journey of how you actually got a book written. I mean, Jackie, you're a consultant and work with all kinds of different organizations, private club advisor and others. Three, you're a club manager. I mean, how did you guys find the time to write a book? And tell us about that whole process.
Well, it took us almost 20 years to write. Like 6, but anyway, go ahead.
No, it's funny though. We had these ideas for a long time, that like some of the ideas and some of the things that we were doing operationally in the clubs as we worked, were things that we wanted to talk about and wanted to share with lots of others. And kind of the idea of a book seemed like a thing. And we said that we were smart, like, oh gosh, we should do a book. And then the humor to that is you don't have any understanding or idea of what in the world that could possibly be. And then you dig in, and we had some really neat connections and some things that gave us some incredible opportunities to move that ball forward. And very frankly, we had become very close friends to an author, 2-time New York Times bestseller named Tommy Spalding. Tommy really took us under his wing, and we had shared this kind of intimate thing that we had about wanting to write a book. And that's where you kind of lose me and you hand it to the brains of the operation. And Jackie really ran with it from there.
Yeah, it was quite a process, just being honest. I mean, you don't realize how much goes into a book. And the kicker for us was that, we had so many stories and so many experiences, but to really narrow it down. And James, as you know, writing the book, we had many times, it was a very humbling experience, because there were times where we wrote something and we're like, yes, this is awesome. And we gave it to our agent and he's like, nah, it's not working.
And Jackie would call me on the phone sometimes, because if I wasn't on every call, she'd call. Like the night before, we'd been reading it together. I was like, Jackie, this is really well done. And then she'd have this call with Michael, and she'd call me. He hates every part of it. And Jackie is this like tough, totally not like, but it was really personal. And you're
we told him from the beginning, we don't want to write something that sucks. I mean, like, we want it to be good. And the trick was really writing something that was very replicatable for other people to really understand what we were saying. And we never thought, I remember we had a call with Michael, our agent, and we sat there and I went, oh my gosh, we have to explain what it means to care. Like, think about that. Like, we had to break that down. So not only did it take us 6 years to write it, because we both have full-time jobs and we were having babies during that time, but really that was kind of the thing that we had to really think about that.
Well, it was things that we took for granted as every day, that all of a sudden, Michael, who very frankly, has always worked in the literary world. He had worked for Random House. He's always lived in New York. So when we're talking about all these kind of touchy-feely things, like, Michael's tough. He's like that kind of northeastern part of the United States kind of guy. And he's like, you got to explain it. I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Yeah. And he was our perfect audience.
Yeah,
right?
It was good. I mean, he pushed us. And so we're very proud of it. And so we're delighted to hear that you enjoyed it, James.
Well, Scott and I live, we live this theory, right? And we've been very lucky to work in. We've always been talking about the fact that it's people first. I mean, it doesn't matter. I always laugh. We just spent $1 million on our bunkers. That's fantastic. Your service sucks. So maybe you should spend $1,000 on training your people, because people, it's people first. We're in the people's business. When you're in the hospitality business. And so we love that. My question for you about the elements of the book that you've defined, did you always did you have to kind of put that on paper and start to come up with the words? When you talk about people first, you talk about the theory, you talk about the 5 steps, you talk about the different elements of it. Was that always in your head from 6 years ago, or did you have to go through that process to really kind of define it and define those steps?
So a long time ago, when I started in this business as a general manager, I was interviewing for my first job and accidentally said something that was kind of profound, something that has literally defined 30 years of my career, which was that if you hire me to be the general manager of this location, I'm going to come in and I'm going to focus on the attitude and morale of the employees. And it's funny because there's more to the story, but in that piece, that one moment, that's the culture, right? And every single club that we had been involved with, that I had been involved with, that was always the primary focus, which is contrary to the business world. It's contrary to most of the club world, where everyone's about members first, or about the customers always right, and all that stuff. And even though we believe that to this minute, and it has defined us, when we went to write it, even that story has to be part of a bigger, more intellectual message. So we took these ideas, these theories, these things that we believed in, and I say I maybe had a lot of the ideas and theories, and very frankly, Jackie was able to extract all that information, go and do the research, and then build it into stuff. So when you talk about the 5 steps and really creating this model of pure human connection, there was a ton of wordsmithing and rethinking about these theories that we believed, but we believed them innately. And then all of a sudden you're trying to find a way to communicate that to people that maybe have no earthly idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. So 3 is the visionary in this duo, and I'm the operator, right? So we went. It was like I said, it was a process. We probably had 3 or 4 different rounds of chapters where we ironed out, this is the chapter, and then all of a sudden it changed. It evolved. Something didn't quite work, but we always knew that there was something about the core of the employee life cycle. It was about the whole thing. It wasn't just about interviewing, and making sure you ask these right questions. And this was the magic bullet, right? And it wasn't just about onboarding, and it wasn't just about,
but it was never
rewarding.
ending.
Yeah. And
never ending cycle.
It wasn't just this is what you have to do and you're done. Right. And so that was the thing that we really had to get into the book. And funny inside story. We went through probably 7 titles of the book.
Wow.
And we literally had
the title ended up at the end.
Yeah, we literally had the entire book written and we still didn't have a title. And it was the most stressful thing because we kept thinking like, we need something sexy, like we need something sexier than what it was. And we got to it. And I remember we had a call with our agent one day and he's like, you guys, we have got to figure out the title. Like the book is done and we have to have a title, because then we had to go back through the entire book and like weave in, the message of the title. Right. And he goes, I don't know why we're overcomplicating this. He goes, it's people first. And I said, and we kind of sat there quiet and we're like, yeah, that's simple, what we've been saying this whole entire time. Why don't we just keep it simple? And so that sort of philosophy of keep it simple, because holy smokes, is everything overcomplicated these days. So we just are really trying to like make everything as easy as possible. So we're really glad. I mean, ultimately we ended on the best title was really just, it's about people first, right?
Well, and that's a great segue into the first question from Gig Nation, because, yeah, exactly. What do employees want? I mean, as Scott said in the beginning, there's all this chatter, rightfully so, about the labor crisis, about the Great Resignation, about no one wants to wash dishes anymore and rake bunkers in the rain at 5 a.m. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why we have a problem, but what Gig Nation's all about is finding solutions and about kind of solving these challenges and being able to do things. So what, in your guys' experience with this journey and with kind of extracting this out and with kind of even the last couple of years, I'm sure in writing the book and finishing the book, you experienced a bit of the COVID process and all the stuff that was happening. So what do you guys think that people, what do people want first? What do people want? What do employees want?
So back before my very first club job, I had run this really large college nightclub at the University of Iowa. It was the biggest bar in the Big Ten. So, I mean, it was really a fun thing as, I was a college kid. And it was interesting because, my focus, again, was always on creating this unbelievable team around me, because I knew I wasn't going to be the smartest guy in every room, maybe in no room. And so the idea of that was to really surround myself with this brilliant team, which I was really proud of. But I realized that it was about building this relationship, this thing between us, and that bond wasn't really about the entity. It was about one another. So the lesson, the message, and COVID has just exemplified it at a whole nother level, is people they care about money, of course, it's obviously, part of it, but the reality is it's not people's primary motivation. When you look into, generation Y and Z and whatever all the new stuff is called, at the end of the day, people want to belong to something where they matter, where they know that their work is more than just dollars in a transaction, right? They want to know they're making a difference. And very frankly, I think more than anything else, people want to know that. And it's my job to go around and remind people every single solitary day from operations perspective that everything that they do, I just did this, if you mind a side story. We had Easter, right? And so, of course, you'll get 400 people coming to brunch. And we had a relatively small group of people, staff, that would be taking care of all those folks. So I was kind of doing the morning kind of rah-rah thing, and I was basically saying to them this: if at any moment you think that today's job has anything to do with getting drinks, bussing tables, or anything else, it doesn't. The whole thing is about how you're going to make everybody else feel. This is their family coming here. This is their family meal. This is home. Like, it matters to them at that level. It's all about how you welcome them into our home, how you make them feel. And so that's the why. Again, it's not about just the service side. It's about the experience and that other piece.
Well, and that's the perfect lead into is I think employees really want to have positive work experiences. I mean, people don't want to go to their jobs and hate it. I mean, they don't want to be treated poorly. They don't want to work with jerks. I mean, this is a bit of a side story, but it's so just like, but we were at a speech a few weeks ago in Wisconsin, and we had one of our friends who's a manager in Rochester, Minnesota, come up to us, and he was telling us about, like, you know, the labor crisis, and they couldn't get any chefs. Like, they literally had like 2 chefs and it was awful. And so he hired a new chef, and he said one thing. Can we swear on here? Can I? Of
course.
Okay, all right, yes. He said, here's the deal. No assholes. I don't want any assholes in the kitchen. And he told the chef that, and he goes, I mean it. And he goes, if we find out they're an asshole after they start working here, they're gone. And he goes, it's been a game changer. It's like spread through their community like wildfire. They're getting tons of chefs. In fact, they have like more than they can get, because everybody heard that it's like nice people working together, and they don't want any assholes. Like, right? And you would think that like this is normal stuff, you guys, but this is not, it's normal.
It's
and
so true.
People don't like, I don't want to walk in the kitchen and ask the chefs a question about the meal, you know, I'm serving, or a member, or whatever. Somebody asked me a question and the chef, you know, talks to me like I'm an idiot. Nobody wants that. Like, so we just really think it's about positive employee experiences and like treating people with
knowing
respect,
they matter,
caring about people. Like, it's all very elementary stuff, but clearly it's not common, right?
That's right.
Well, Jackie, 2 things. I mean, first of all, if in Iowa asshole is a swear word, first of all, you got to come spend some time in Canada. And then secondly, all you have to do after you say asshole is say, oh, I'm sorry. That's a Canadian word. I'm so sorry. But, you know, so in that topic, though, and this is what I think is so difficult about our business, and I do believe that the club business is very unique. I believe it's very weird. I believe that there is nowhere that you have 700 people that think that they're your boss, and that they actually legitimately believe that you know your job is to servitude 700 people. And I think the problem is that when you're the leader, the manager, you have all these pressures coming down on you of the job and the task and the delivery and the complaints and the 20% and all that stuff. Yet you're supposed to take that all in, and you're supposed to let it wash off of you. And then you're supposed to go walk up to your employee and say, I care about you. I love you. What can I do for you? You know, it's all about the why. It's really difficult to do that, right? As a manager, because we sometimes transfer all that stress of the delivery of the experience, the member experience, the customer experience. And at the end of the day, you still got to answer emails. You still got to, you know, check boxes. You still got to open the doors, and you still got to make sure the Eggs Benedict on Easter brunch is not cold. I mean, you know, people can love you all they want, but if the Eggs Benedicts are cold, you're gonna be going to a lot of clubs talking about love, and you're not going to keep your job for very long. So.
That's exactly right. You're 100% correct. And people being able to kind of work through that and prioritize that sort of positive message, it's tough. And for the leaders within a club or with any kind of golf operation, any hospitality organization, man, you have to be able to really have thick skin and realize how important it is to keep that positive energy going.
Yeah.
So, Scott, I think the next question, I got a funny little story. First of all, we love side stories, by the way. We love side stories.
Okay, good.
I was actually just talking with a conference education director by email, and I asked him about, you know, what should I talk about in the next conference or whatever it was, and he kind of said, whatever you don't include COVID in your proposal. So he's like, people are sick and tired of talking about COVID, and you know they want to kind of get. I thought it was really interesting because you know he's just like, the club managers in the room don't want you to say now that COVID's here, right? But you can't deny it's just like COVID has changed the expectations of members and changed the, you know, waiting lists because of the belief of community and of, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all the rationale that's, and it's not just blah, blah, blah. Surveys have totally proven, and focus groups and data has shown that COVID has changed the way people right now perceive their life and their time and their hobbies. Do you think that COVID has changed the way that we manage people? Do you think that any of the principles that you believe in has been altered in any way due to the pandemic?
Well, interestingly, we think the pandemic was created perfectly timed to our book's release, because it just sort of emphasized, like you said earlier, all the message of our book. And I'll go first on my theory on how COVID, I think, has really changed things. Is I think people are a lot less tolerant of being treated badly.
That's absolutely for sure.
And so call it soft, call it weenies, call it whatever you want to call it, but it's the reality, right? Like people don't, side story, here we go. I remember back in the day of being a banquet manager, and the chef literally like holding up his knife, yelling at my servers as we carried the trays out of the kitchen, like, if you tip those plates, I swear to God, I'm coming after you. You know, he was from Boston, so that's the voice. But like, you can't do that stuff anymore, or those people will probably quit. They aren't going to work there. So I just think we have to just be kinder and more respectful and more aware of people's feelings, which again, all comes back to people first. I mean, that's literally what we wrote our book about, is really humanizing the workplace and really seeing people as humans, not just as cogs in a machine, right?
The other thing I'd add to that too is it's funny how all of us, being social kind of creatures by and large, during the period of social distancing, or maybe even having to stay at home for some period of time, depending on what part of North America we were all in during those times, I think the idea of taking away that freedom, taking away that connection with others, I don't know if it hurt people, but it reminded them how much they cared and they craved that connection to others. And it's interesting. I have someone who's worked at my current club for 41 years. And because of her health concerns, she took 16 months where she was at home. And she's a single person, doesn't have any kids. And so she was at home for 16 months alone. And it is a really interesting thing, I think, because, I see her every day. I happen to be walking into the building with her this morning, and she can hear me coming up behind her. And she stops and she turns like 3. And like, she's this whole gianter personality than she was before, because she just craves that personal thing that she really missed. And so the answer to the real question, right, is that I think that people realize how important that is. Jackie's right. People are maybe a little bit more sensitive about being treated poorly. And I think that's for sure true. But I think on the other side of it, people just want that. And I think if you can help create, like with me, we've educated my board. We've got a letter going out to our members reminding people how incredibly important it is that we treat our employees with respect and dignity, and we're polite. We've called some members to task on that topic. We don't have a lot of that, but we've had a little. And our staff knows that we are literally caring about them first. We are, people first, and our board thinks that way, and hopefully our membership too.
Well, and the thing we have to remember, and we heard this on a news story the other day, is it's an employee's world, right? So if you aren't providing the kind of environment, if you aren't treating people well, if they have to deal with members who are complaining about everything, and like, well, I don't want to deal with it. I can go get a job down the street and make, $3 more an hour, and I don't have to deal with this crap, right? Like, is crap a swear word in Canada? No.
No.
So, it's those kinds of things, but we just have to really take all of that into account when we're managing. And it's not that, and I just want to make this clear, it's not that bad days can't happen. Like, that's not realistic, that it's going to be all roses and rainbows, right? Like, that's not realistic. But I think how we help people and how we help them through the bad days is what matters. That is what makes a difference. Like, when there is a problem, if we leave people on their own to have to like deal with it and figure it out, they probably are going to put their resume into the open job down the street, right? Like, so it's really about helping people kind of get through those things. I think that's just, it's a bigger difference than it was before.
Yep.
I call it I kind of call it the great power shift. And like you said, Jackie, it's like, I've always been promoting that a pandemic would increase the golf industry and the rounds of golf. Like, the reason, we've always needed a good pandemic to make the club business alive again. But in all seriousness, pre-COVID, we were begging people, grabbing at their pant legs as they were, taking their business down the street. Like, I'm going to, we'd be like, oh, we'll do whatever you need. You want us to discount by 50%, so you'll stay here. Oh, play here. Okay, fantastic. And what, now that the T-sheets are full and membership wait lists are busier, I don't believe it's going to last forever, but I do believe that we have this great opportunity to set a new expectation with the customer. Like you said, it's like, you can't go into a coffee shop and just yell at someone, for getting your order wrong, because there's 9 signs and 9 other customers that will rip your head off.
Right.
Because everyone is so sensitive to this topic.
Yes.
So what I preach a little bit is that now's the opportunity to reestablish your policies, to relook at your rules, so relook at your employee satisfaction levels, to what your employees want, all that kind of stuff. And if you've got a loud member in the corner bitching and complaining, that's my first swear word. I've got better ones in the second half.
James 1, Jackie 2. Well, 1.5.
Exactly. If you've got someone in the corner always bitching about the fact the shrimp salad sandwich is more than $3, you the staff need to see you kind of take a leadership role and kind of stand up and not let them get abused. Scott, when we posted this kind of Q&A call, we had such a great response on social media and with Gig Nation and stuff like that. And we had difficulty kind of choosing some of the kind of questions, but what's coming up? What's next?
Yeah. So the next question is, how important is the leader when it comes to creating that people first culture?
Yeah, this one's a big one. And it's interesting, and I'm going to take maybe a side part of this. So for me, I've managed 7 or 8 private clubs over the course of my career, and I have always done it from the position of the general manager, chief operating officer. I happen to be a big, large personality, right? I worked with Jackie at 2 of those clubs, and Jackie is a bigger personality. So it's interesting because to answer this question, how important is the leader when it comes to creating a people-first culture? It is essential in the belief. But when we worked together in Dallas, my job was to not only rebuild the staff and rebuild the employee culture and really create that member experience, but we were also building a $63 million new 135,000 square foot building at the same time. So a lot of my days were highly structured and scheduled in meetings. So it was essential that I had some unbelievable person who could do that. So if you'll reverse that story a bit and think of it this way, if you as a general manager have come through this maybe because you had a flair for the accounting side or whatever, and you are less of a personality, it doesn't mean that you can't have a people first culture. If you just go out and find that example. So Jackie, those of you guys, and I know you've read the book, James, where it says, Jackie was at Dallas called the culture czar. Well, what that basically means is she hired every single solitary human being in every single department, and she was the keeper of our culture. So even though I also thought like that, had that personality, I didn't have necessarily enough time to do it justice. Mm-hmm. So it was her life. It was her thing to do that. So my big message to you is the leader is essential, but it may not be the top person on the ladder. Mm-hmm. It's some leader within that organization who completely owns this and completely creates this people first culture. And it doesn't matter if it's a membership director or the golf pro or the culture czar or the general manager. It's just somebody in that upper leadership.
Well, and we get this question a lot from people is like, okay, well, I'm an assistant manager or whatever. I'm the golf pro, and the head guy or the head person doesn't get the whole theory. He's an asshole. Thank you. Right? Nicely saying. He doesn't get the whole people first thing, or she doesn't get the people first thing. And we believe that not that that's the end all be all, that you can lead up and you can still have an impact on your culture. You can still have an impact on the overall organization, because it's really about leading by example. And what we have found is when this, people first, right, starts trickling in and becoming evident, it's very infectious. People want that. I mean, it's something that people can aspire to. And we actually had, in one of our recent speaking engagements, we had a kid ask us this, and he's like, what do I do? Because the boss doesn't get it. And I feel like I've done everything that I can. And he said, well, why don't you ask him what you should do? And to say hey, here's what we're trying to create. Here's what our team wants. And we're stuck because you don't seem to get it. What should we do? Right?
Well, and you present it in a way that says, look, we know this is going to help our entire organization. This is a team-driven, collaborative idea. it doesn't have to be something that you have enough time for or something that you're completely involved in, but help us.
Right.
And I think that presented in the right way,
Absolutely.
it's hard to imagine anybody not wanting to buy into the idea that there's a whole group of your teammates trying to help collaboratively make the club a better place, that there are some ways to get that done.
Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
No, it totally does. And I think that one of the things that Scott and I, we get a chance to kind of visit clubs and work with clubs, and there's no doubt that a club, to create a people first culture, there needs to be there's got to be some type of leadership in the board, in the general manager, in the senior leadership team. Like, there's got to be an understanding that we're just not in the business of flipping burgers and cutting greens. Like, they really have to understand. And what I find is that lots of people don't. Lots of people think that they're measured of success by the bottom line. I always tell a manager, look, you're never going to get fired because your food cost is 34% instead of 32%. You're going to get fired because the food sucks. Mm-hmm. or because you run around chasing staff with a knife in your hand. Like we're in the making people happy business. And if that costs us another 1% in your food cost or 2% in your food cost, so if everyone's happy, I'm happy. Right. We're all happy. Right. And so there does, I think the challenge is that, as I said, you have to have skills. You have to know accounting and marketing and agronomy and food and beverage and retail and events. You have to know about a whole bunch of things, and then you also have to know that it's about people, that it's about like creating experiences, creating FOMO, creating that stuff, and that's why I think that managers don't last for very long in our world, and that boards are. You get through boards that get lost on track because the club hasn't identified the importance of the human experience. Mm-hmm. So they start chasing after building new bunkers and about renovating the clubhouse instead of fixing what's the integrity, the inside, the heart and soul of the club. So I think that's a great question. I think that and I love your comment about managing up and the fact that that no matter if you run the back shop, you can still create a people first environment. And obviously, as we tell people all the time, you're on a journey. Make the most of your stop, and then find a better stop. Go go find a job that is going to be people first. Because if that's what is your why, you gotta you're going to die if you work somewhere for too long that doesn't believe in the same why that you have. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So
go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, if you are a young person out there who maybe feels like their leader at their club isn't really on this bus, like how do you lead up, or manage up rather? Like, should you buy a copy of the book and give it to them, or like, do you have some other tactics of how that person should do that?
Just prop it up on their desk.
Yeah.
No. Go ahead.
It's funny, by the way, this literally has happened to us a number of times since we've been out kind of on the journey. So we're working with this really, really premier club in the western part of the United States. And I had done some pre-calls with some of the folks involved in the team. So there's a situation where they had an employee that was an absolute all-star. Everybody on the team believes it, including all the leadership and kind of every part of it. And they had charged this person with a number of responsibilities, ultimately involved loosely with employee culture, kind of around the human resources kind of thing. But this person had started, very frankly, kind of out in the bag staff, and then it kind of worked into the golf shop and really had been there for a long time, kind of finding his way, but was such a massive talent and kind of a fabulous addition to the club. They've just continued to promote him. He had found, though, that the main leadership was not able to dedicate and prioritize enough time. And basically what we said was, obviously we made the joke about, put the book on his desk, but we obviously said, really sit down and create a presentation as to what you believe with what you were assigned to do, to own culture, and how we'll get there. And then ultimately create a presentation and go and meet with the head person in this example and say, this is what we need. And by the way, imagine if it's not the head person. Imagine, pick anybody you want. Imagine it's a golf professional, and the golf professional, kind of has his little group and kind of works in his way or whatever it is, but seems to be a bit of a stumbling block to the bigger good of the entire entity. Same situation. Present it as a group and say, this is really what we've got to do. We've got to be headed in the same direction.
Yeah, we believe most people are good people. It's just sometimes people, I think, have gotten lost, especially through that COVID period, overwhelmed, just kind of everybody's just got so much stuff to do all the time that we've really found that people have just kind of gotten lost. And they kind of need to be reminded that, like, hey, this is important too. And this, is something that we really need to be focused on. And like Three said, kind of presenting it as a team. We just think that can really make some change.
It's hard to imagine anybody, if presented in the right way, because sure, that's threatening. So let's just pretend it's me. I'm the guy who's not going to be very nice and whatever. And somebody on my team comes and says, well, Three, you're the problem. Mm-hmm. Man, that would hurt. I mean, I can't even imagine, right? But with that also said, I think that if, no matter who you are, you'd start to look a little bit on what's being presented. And it's such a idealistic kind of approach to making the place better that I can't imagine you wouldn't find a way to swallow your pride enough to be able to push that agenda forward to get moving.
If not, you probably just find another job.
That's right, too.
I mean, really. So if you kind of know the whole team is kind of going that direction and you're not going to mesh, the writing might be on the wall. So
we think it's an easy sell because of what the message is.
Especially if putting the book on the desk first doesn't work, then try those things.
So speaking of the book, and I know I'm pretty sure I know what the next question is, Scott, because the book talks about the 5 steps of pure human connection, and at Gig, and especially with Gig Nation, we strive to give at all times our members real life examples that they can kind of apply, like we talk about all these things, but like, okay, like you said, what do I do? That was a great example, 3 of that. Can you just share, we've got, 20 plus minutes left in our call. Can you share what are the 5 steps of pure human connection, and how does, because everyone's going to read the book, I know that, but you talk about it in the book. So what are the 5 steps of pure human connection that you talk about?
Yeah, so the first thing that sort of tees up the 5 steps is this notion of pure human connection. And we really sort of tripped on it when we were writing the book, that everything that we presented, everything we came about was this one thing, was like connection, kept like hitting us in the face like over and over again. And so it ended up becoming like this dominant theme and really the crux
of the whole thing.
Of the whole book. And so what pure human connection is, you guys, is no distractions, right? It can be a hug, a handshake, a high five, just listening to someone, just seeing somebody and saying like, I hear you, I understand, those kinds of things, because wow, has that gotten away from us. Oh, go ahead.
Here's my imitation of what most employee and manager interactions look like. Yeah, so Jackie, you're going to make sure and get that done this afternoon, right? Okay. And the reality of it has to be this. So we had 7 waitresses handle 4 people for Easter the other day, which was
400, you mean?
I'm sorry, 7 waitresses, 400 people for Easter. I walked around before the end of the shift was over, and I walked up to each human being. I walked up, I grabbed everybody's hand, said, thank you very much. There was no distraction. There was nothing going on. I wasn't worried about Mr. Member over here. I was 100% dialed in on just that moment of just saying, thank you. You matter. And what you did was incredible. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things are pure human connection.
Yeah. And that's really the crux of all of these 5 steps. So we'll get into the 5 steps, but so the first one is credibility. And this is really about your brand as an entity. And we want to be clear. It's not, if you're a club, it's not your messaging as to why people should join your club or why people should come in.
It's your employer brand.
It's why you're a great place to work. And that's something that's very different. People haven't thought about that before, but that message is real. And it starts within your 4 walls, but it's really what the people outside of your 4 walls are saying about you. Because here's the thing that people don't always remember is our employees talk. They talk to their family, they talk to their friends. They're saying, oh my God, I'm so stressed out at work, or oh, I have to deal with my boss. It's just such a jerk, or whatever it might be. And those things trickle around the community, right? So it's really about our brand. Would you add anything to that?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, that's so essential. And it's funny because I think we're pretty brilliant about how great our golf course is and how great our food is and that whole brand, the image of the website. But on the employee side,
right.
Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a section within your website? Are all those things really out there? Are we doing a good job of communicating the employee experience? And most clubs are going to answer no to that. And even some of the premier clubs in North America, we were just recently visiting a club in the eastern part of the United States. It's very literally one of the top 20 clubs in the country. And they are killing it in every possible way, except the employee side. And the employee side, they are screaming what a problem it is and how much help they need on that side of it. And they have unlimited resources, just lack of focus in that direction.
Here's where we really freak people out about their credibility is think about the last 5 people that have quit. What are they telling everybody about what it's like to work at your organization, right? So we have to be truthworthy and trustful and truth. Yeah, I always do that. I got to come up with 2 different words, but we have to be like, people want to know that they can trust us as an employer, that we're going to do the right thing. And that was especially true during COVID. Sorry, I'm bringing COVID up again, but during COVID where, a bunch of employers just said, hey, sorry, you're all fired, figure it out. We don't know what to do. Right. And the businesses that kept their people or tried to pay people or tried to work through it together,
just tried to help their employees in any way, send them food at home,
whatever, they saw people come back a lot faster, and they're probably having a little bit less difficult time finding staff than those jerks, right? That just were like, hey, sorry, you're on your own, right? So that's really what our credibility is. And to find out your credibility, we would urge you to talk to your employees. Hey, why do you work here? Why do you like it? What don't you like about working here? And it's amazing how many times we see people go, oh, we've never actually asked what people think about working at our organization, right?
That's a big one, and it's a really easy one too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's credibility. Any questions, you guys? Does that make sense? Hopefully.
No, I love it. That makes total. Well, it makes total. We could talk for an hour about that topic right there because, so many times it's like in our relationships at home, it's not us, right? And so. I'm obviously perfect. My fiance's got some problems, but I'm obviously perfect. And so the challenge, of course, is that when you do have employees leave you, or you do have them, people don't want to peel back the onion and discover that they have an employee morale problem. They'd rather just kind of, just keep going and paint walls, right? So that's a great word. So go number 2.
Yep, number 2 is candor. And this is really important when we're interviewing people. It's about being very open and honest and authentic and really telling people what they can expect of working at your organization, but also what they can expect of you as an employer. And it's just kind of getting these things clear. We get it that right now it can be really scary to be honest with people when we're almost desperate to hire people. But the thing is, if you tell people they don't have to work, you don't tell them they have to work nights and weekends until they show up on their first day. And then they find out they're probably not going to stick around anyway. So you're better off being honest with people right from the get-go. So that's really what candor is all about in the interview process.
It's real transparency.
And it's also remembering that an interview can be a conversation and not an interrogation. We've probably all been through interrogations like, Scott, why are you good enough to work here? And we want to get away from that. We really want to be more, gracious and welcoming and very conversational versus, prove your worth, right?
I love that. I'm going to steal that sentence, by the way.
Yeah, prove your worth. Why are you good enough?
Interview is a conversation, not an interrogation. I love that one.
Yeah.
That's really important.
What's number 3?
Number 3 is cultivation. So if we're lucky enough to hire somebody, to select someone, and they actually show up for orientation, right? Because that's part of the challenge these days. When they show up, cultivation is about getting somebody up to speed quickly. And so many times in all of our research and things that we found, people look at the first 90 days of employment as sort of a sink or swim period where like we've got to weed out the weak ones, right?
Well, it used to be referred to as a probationary period.
Oh, totally. And how awful sounding is that to
You're
make
on
some
probation.
right prove why you can stay, right?
Right.
And we believe it's got to completely shift into this whole mindset and philosophy of being a very nurturing, supportive time where we're answering people's questions. We're not making them feel like we're throwing them to the wolves, where it's a very helpful time. And here's where a lot of places make a mistake. They do a really good job of giving them a trainer or setting them up for the first few days. And then nobody else is helpful. Like if that person, again, sorry, chefs, I'm just picking on chefs today, but that, new server goes up to the chef to ask a question and he's like, what are you doing in my kitchen? And why should I be talking to you? Like that's not great, right? And here's what we urge everybody to remember, because this is something so easy to forget, is that when you're new, you feel stupid. Right. And so how do we help people not feel stupid and help them get over the hump as quickly as possible? So that's cultivation.
I love it.
And then
Scott, any thoughts, any questions on that, Scott?
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I think, don't be an asshole, right? But,
Exactly, right?
It's the overarching message.
It is.
all joking aside, I mean, I was thinking too, just a minute ago, the first one about credibility and just, the importance of being a great employer. So true. I mean, I was just thinking about James and I worked at a club a few years back where, like, James, I think that was literally our number 2 goal with the overall business was to be a great employer in the community, right? Like before making $1, it was about being a great employer. And I just think, we were fortunate to have a great culture, and we were fortunate to, be able to retain a lot of great people for a lot of years. And I just think, just reminded me of how important that first step is, right? Just be seen as a great employer in your community and how much that can contribute to everything that we're talking about today.
Well, as I mentioned earlier on, we were fortunate also to have an ownership group that believed that was worthwhile, that if we had a great culture, like I always say, like if you have happy employees, they work harder. They create happier customers spend more money. It's a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, I don't understand why it's so complicated. It's like, it's pretty.
And you're right. It's easy, but people forget.
You'll forget.
Yeah.
Okay, what's number 4?
Yeah, step number 4 is commitment. So we want to show our employees that we're committed to their success and their well-being far beyond just within our 4 walls, right? And so we want to really encourage and empower our employees to take ownership of their jobs. Because can you imagine a place where everybody owns their role? I mean,
it's where Southwest Airlines here in the United States has been really, really brilliant when you think about it. And many of you have flown Southwest Airlines. For a long, long, long time, Southwest Airlines, their motto in their gift shop in the employee part of Southwest down in Dallas, they sold these great black T-shirts with white letters that said, "Own it." And when I asked the lady behind the counter what that meant, she went into a very long dissertation as to how that is the entire message of everybody who works at Southwest Airlines. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So how do we get our people to own their jobs? Like, let's not micromanage them. Let's give them what they need, right? Let's show that we're committed to their success. So that's step number 4.
I love it. It's so true. And this gets back to that, every team has got people with different skills on it, right? And your job as a coach is to bring the best out of every player. It's right. Not to go grab the football and run down the field and then go tackle a guy and then go kick the field goal and then blow the referee, the whistle. I mean, you're supposed to have multiple people that all are empowered to do what they're supposed to be good at. And so many times we feel this need sometimes to kind of, once again, it's like, I don't need to be an expert at how to cook a burger. I need to know I need to know how to assess my chef to ensure that he or she knows how to run a kitchen and cook a great burger.
That's exactly right.
And those are 2 totally different things, right? As a manager. Yeah. I love that. Own it's great.
And it leads us perfectly to step number 5, if that's all right, which is care. And care is so easy to do and it's free, yet so few people do it, right? Every single person in our organization can care. And it's really about just like that. It's like seeing people as human beings. It's really caring about them. It's recognizing and rewarding them and being grateful for their efforts and just treating people better than we would if we didn't care, right? No assholes, right? Like, let's care.
Well, and the care thing is funny because, we've been so trained that, you got to be careful about HR things and all that kind of stuff. And so I think companies got to the point, and then you had COVID where people were working from home or they were social distancing or they were doing everything on Zoom or whatever it is in business that people are dealing with. And all of a sudden they really forgot that, these people have lives. They have things that matter. They have a dog, they have children, they have a husband, they have whatever it is. And those things are all big pieces of their life. Jackie learned a great lesson as her first management role, where she remembered talking to a waitress who had been working at the club longer than Jackie had been alive at the time. And at some point, Jackie was talking to her just about things going on and wondering if she was working too much and this whole thing. And the waitress looked at her and says, Jackie, you just don't understand. Being here around you, being here, frankly, is the highlight of my day, of my week. It's an escape from the world that I live in, not here at the club. Well, that's a powerful thing because maybe not everyone's home life is as great as you'd like to hope, right? And so all of a sudden work becomes that escape. Refuge, that escape. And we've got to be so aware of that. But that's a thing where you know it and you care. I think about people that have problems, like real issues, in real life. And then sometimes we can help be a bridge to either escaping that or maybe even sometimes solving those things. And just showing people we care changes everything.
Well, and here's really the crux of it all. If we're going to kind of summarize everything, is can't we just be like real people working together at life instead of just people working together at work? Like, we just think it changes the game and it just enhances everybody's life when we genuinely care and we see people as humans and we want to help people, even if it means we're helping them get a job beyond our four walls, right? So it's really about that bigger piece. It's about the connection, the relationships,
that's right.
All of it kind of coming together.
I love it. That's awesome. It's awesome. It's that's such an inspirational, motivational, aspirational kind of objective, that you're kind of talking about there. And I'm sure you would agree, right? It's like it's a daily challenge. It's not a chore. It's a daily task, right? It's like you gotta make a choice every day about.
Every day. That's right.
It's like every day you got to make a choice about whether or not you're going to talk to someone while you're watching your phone. You're going to look at them in the eye and shake their hand and thank them, right?
It's prioritizing that idea. And it's even sometimes prioritizing your schedule. Today, my schedule is just really booked with meetings. And I have to find some time in there. Like, I looked at my calendar this morning and thought, okay, when am I going to get upstairs at lunch and really talk to people? When am I going to get around to the employees, like between 4 and 5 in between these meetings? And it's sometimes not just putting away the devices or whatever, but it's even when you're in that space, just focusing on, the other person that you're talking to. I talked to a young manager from Sioux Falls, South Dakota the other day, and he was talking about how scheduled he was. And I was like, man, you just got to prioritize time. You got to block it off in your calendar if that's what it takes to go and spend time showing your employees that you are there for them.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And
as a club manager,
go ahead, James. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jackie. As a club manager, I mean, I can't imagine you built, you talked about the cultures are, you talked about Jackie's support, but not everyone has a Jackie to be their cultures are, right?
I'm so lucky.
And, yeah, you're very lucky. And when Jackie's on vacation, getting some downtime from,
that never happens.
But you must also find a way to tell people to get stuff done, right? I mean, like you gotta like. I'm sure every conversation is not like, how are you and how can I help you? I'm sure there's a conversation that says, I walked through the kitchen yesterday and it was a mess. We're totally picking on chefs, by the way, and kitchen. This is like,
poor guys.
We have a theme today. But how you obviously it's a balance, right? Of like, sometimes you got to discipline people. Sometimes you got to hold people accountable. Sometimes you got to tell people to pick up their socks. I mean, it's obviously a balance, right?
You pick up your socks. Well, yeah, but your pick up your socks thing is kind of the perfect example. Honestly, Jackie's doing a really, really good job raising 2 little kids. And one of them is a 5-year-old girl with all of her personality. And there are many times she doesn't want to do what mom says. Mom is unbelievable at being able to talk to her in a way that sort of explains why it matters and make her not feeling that at any point Jackie's talking down to her or yelling at her or anything else. And that model, that parent model that we all have been a part of in one way or another, and we all see, is a lot of the same thing. Sure, I'm tough on people. I mean, obviously I've had to fire people, but I will tell you, I do a lot less than that. I do a lot less firing of people than you can imagine, a lot less dictatorial talking, because at the end of the day, man, I'm straightforward with people in every shape and or form, but I do it in a way where it's incredibly intended to be supportive. And it's, hey, we're working together collaboratively. But yeah, man, I noticed that things aren't looking so good down there. Can you help me get this thing looking better? We got people that are going to notice that. And I do it from a standpoint, I ask a lot, I tell a little. And that has been a really big focus for me. But you are correct. I mean, the first time I had to discipline somebody that was fairly high level at this particular club I work at currently, it actually had to happen with the club president due to the nature of the conversation. And afterwards, the club president, I was fairly new to the entity, walked up to me and said, man, I didn't know that was inside you. I was like, well, it is what it has to be, because at that point, it had to be a very serious conversation. I still like to think that, you know, I try to be supportive and just recently did a review that wasn't 100% fabulous, but made it very clear as to, you know, why we were there and what we were talking about. And again, those are 2 times I can think of in 6 years. So
yeah. Well, the tough love piece. Yeah.
Tough love is a good example.
Sometimes you have to do it, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, and you know, you, as I said, I mean, whenever I've had to let someone go, I would like to believe that they've always felt respected and cared about, and that, you know, it was I've had people come up to me years later and say, best thing you ever did to me, you know, like whatever. Right. You know, I've had lots of people not say that as well.
Me too.
It's whatever it is. Scott, I think we got one more question on the docket.
Yeah. So just to wrap up with maybe talking about some ways to best determine how happy and engaged your employees are. So what are some tools or tactics that you can employ to measure happiness and engagement?
So I've got one simple answer, and then Jackie will give you some more detailed. It's going to sound ridiculous, but it's this simple, because we try to make things too complicated.
Yep.
Just go ask them. And Jackie's going to talk to you about surveys and some other things that are all hugely valuable. For me, I have a very good feel of what's happening in our operation, because just randomly I walk up to people and just talk to them about what they're doing. And Jackie will tell you, having worked with me, that I'm a distraction, which is probably true. But the reality is I have a lot of conversation where I'm really trying to learn what we're doing well, what we could really improve on, what things would make their jobs easier. Yeah. Now, that's one kind of anecdotal way to get there.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, an employee survey can be very enlightening. And I think everybody's probably going, oh, great, I don't have time for an employee survey. But really, you do. And somebody in your organization can make a 3-question Survey Monkey link that you can text or email to every employee and simply ask, what do you like about working here? What you don't like about working here? What do you wish we knew? Or what do you want us to change? Or something like that. And at least get some idea of the direction. And this is a total dumb thing, but we did this once when we started at a club, and it was a very awful culture. I mean, it was just bad. And we asked everybody, like, hey, what do you need? Like, what do you wish we could change? And like 90% of the employees said, we wish there was a TV in the break room. So 3 went and bought like a $600 TV, hung it up in the break room, and you would have sworn that like we handed out $1,000 bonuses. Like, people were skipping around.
Those little tiny things sometimes. And Jackie tells this great story about this one woman at the same club, by the way, who literally was frustrated every day because her printer didn't work very well.
Buy her a new printer.
We bought her a printer. It was like $200.
And she was like a whole new person, like a whole new employee. And so it's just, I mean, ask people, what frustrates you here? Like, who wants to be frustrated all the time? Nobody. So those little things that we can ask that you can just be so incredibly incyctful. And
plus,
can
they know
change
you're
the game.
asking and you're caring, which, I mean, there's so much messaging here. It sounds so simple. And I know I opened with that, just go ask. But I'm telling you, that piece of it, everybody on staff knows that they can talk to me at any point about anything. And that is different than a lot of places.
Don't overcomplicate it. Like, literally go ask. Like, don't make it harder than it has to be, right?
Right.
Well, speaking of asking, I got a question of you. How can people buy your book? How can people book 3 and Jackie to come and talk to their club, or to help them develop a people first culture? Tell us about what how Gig Nation can engage with
I love
people.
Gig Nation. Well, our book is available anywhere books are sold. So you can go online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Book Depository, wherever books are sold. And if you enjoy it, please tell your friends. We're just trying to get the message out. We have so many people say, oh, my boss needs this book so badly, or I wish I worked for an organization that was people first. And we just are so passionate about it that we just want to help continue to spread that message. And then as far as, if we can help your organization, or if you know of somebody that needs us, we can do Zoomland, which clearly we're pretty high functioning in Zoomland. We can do that, or we can come to you, but go to our website. It's 3njackie, all spelled out.com. All of our contact info is there. You can send us a message, an email, whatever, but let us know what we can do to help, because clearly we're passionate about people first. So
it's been great fun over the course of these last few months, getting to work with some just extraordinary people in a lot of different industries. And we have to tell you, we were pretty excited. I am falling in love completely with the whole idea of what you guys are doing with Gig Nation. It is brilliant. Yeah. So we really appreciate being part of this today.
Thank you so much, guys, for your time. We really love it. We have a lot of our Gig Nation are right now being chased by a chef with a knife, and so they will watch.
I'll never live this down.
Chefs of the world unite against you.
Or they're working for some asshole, and he's not letting them take a break, and watching Gig Nation. But they'll this will live on forever, and we just really appreciate you guys giving us your time. And look, in all seriousness, I'm a huge fan of People First. If Scott and I could have written a book 10 years ago, it would have been exactly with those kind of elements. It's such a wonderful message, and I think it's fantastic that you're spreading it in the club industry, and anything we can do to kind of get that message around the world, we'd love to do so. So thank you so much for your time, Scott. It's always a pleasure, and we wish everybody a fantastic day, and just care. I think there's so many great messages that we
be more focused on people, less focused on things.
I love it. More focused on people, less focused on things, and that's a good lesson for all of us, whether we're at work or not. So that's right. Valuable lesson. So thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it. And from Gig Nation, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Learn more at 3njackie, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.